Hello, algebra class. This is on page 30 of your Unit 2 packet. So it's actually part 2 of the Unit 2 packet, but page 30. This is, we're going to talk about standard form, which is another way. We've talked about slope-intercept form. Standard form, is another way we can see an equation. A, B, and C would all be numbers, all right? They would all, A, B, C are all numbers in this case. So the things you see below, the way they are starting, are in standard form. So if an equation is in standard form, we can convert that to slope-intercept form. And that's actually what I would title this, because we're not going to camp out about standard form. We're going to camp out and practice converting to slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. All right. That is what we're going to be practicing. So, reminder that slope-intercept form is y is equal to mx plus b, where m and b are numbers. And so if we can solve for y, think about back to our literal equations, if we can solve for y, then we have it in slope-intercept form. So we are going to need to move the x. So I'm going to move the x to the other side, or you could simply think I'm moving the x to the other side, and when he crosses the equal line, he changes his sign. We do want to put the negative 2x next to the equal because remember we are trying to have this in slope-intercept form, which means we want to be able to see our slope right next to the equal sign. So this time that problem only had one step to put it in slope-intercept form. We just had to move the x, and that was it because there was no coefficient of the y. Typically we'll have things more like number 2 where we're going to move the x, and then we're going to divide by capital B being the coefficient of y. It's just all part of getting y by itself. So you don't have to think about those steps as long as you know what to do to get y by itself, to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 4x on both sides. Effectively, that just moves the x to the other side. He cannot really combine with that negative 30. I'll write the negative 4x first, and then minus 30. And then every part is going to get divided, sorry, that's crowding me out, is going to get divided by whatever the coefficient of y is. And in this case, that is 5. So everything gets divided by 5 because that's what we need to do to get y alone. So that's gone. Now I just have y. If it doesn't divide, then I'm just going to leave it in a fraction, which is kind of handy here because that is our slope. And then negative 30 divided by 5 is negative 6. If that fraction could reduce, we would want to reduce. In this case, it does not reduce. That is all that we can and need to do with it. So let's kind of move down the page and try a couple others. Again, if you remember doing literal equations, then this should seem familiar. Also, we did do this in the pre-algebra class if you took that class. I'm going to do number 4 just because sometimes people feel like they're finished a little sooner than they really are here. I'm going to move the x over. Don't forget that negative sign at this point is attached to the y. And the y is not truly alone as long as it has that negative sign. It's like we're saying the opposite of y. So everything's getting divided by negative 1. Or you might just think, since it's the opposite, I have to change all of the signs. In this case, everything was negative, and now everything will be positive. Now we're actually in slope-intercept form. So number 5, again, move your x. Now in this case we have something a little bit different. We have a 0 over there. I do not need to write that 0. I don't need to write plus 0. I can just put equal negative 4x. And then again, like number 4, I need to change the sign so that the y is positive, but that's also going to change the sign on the other side. And I suppose if you wanted to write plus 0, you could, but that would not be necessary. So this is one of the skills that is on homework 5. All right. So one more example on this side of the page. I'll do number 8. Again, you don't need to finish page 30 and 31. You should fill in at least the examples that I give, but you don't need to finish those other pages. You'll have an opportunity to use this on the homework page. So here, I'm going to move the x. So even if you think you got it, please stay with me here because this is a typical place where people make mistakes. Then I need to divide by 5. You might think, well, so far, no big deal. But this is negative 1 divided by 5, not 5 divided by negative 1. So this is negative 1/5 x, not negative 5x. Many times people think this is a whole number. It's not a whole number because the 1 is on top, the 5 is on the bottom. And then negative 15 divided by 5 is negative 3. That part I feel like is the easy part. All right, so we're going to turn the page over and do just a couple more examples. Actually, we'll just go over to the other side. We'll do number 11 because it reduces. All right, number 11 because it reduces. And we haven't had a lot of, we've either come out evenly or that's been it. We haven't really had a lot of things where the slope reduced. So once again, let's move that x to the other side because our goal is to have the y by itself if I'm doing slope-intercept form. So I have negative 9y is negative 12x minus 9. Now I need to divide every part by negative 9. I can't just do one giant fraction on the right because I need to see my slope and intercept separately. And then 2 negatives we know make a positive. And 12 over 9, we can divide top and bottom by 3. So we can divide by 3 over 3, which is just another way to say 1. So this becomes not 3 on top though, sorry. 4 over 3, 12 is on top, x, and then plus 1. All right, so those are great examples to help you on page 32 and 33. Problems 10 through 18. If you first change things into slope-intercept form when you're trying to match the graphs, that might be helpful. It may also be helpful to simply write the equation for the graph. So for example, we did this already. If we used some IXL and did this, and we did it on paper. If we were writing the equation for the graph, I would need the y-intercept and I would need the slope. So my slope, it's going up 2 and over 6, which I could reduce and make that up 1 over 3, right? Because there's another point right there. And its y-intercept is at negative 2. So I want the equation that would give me this in slope-intercept form. So then if I start moving things, here I would have 3y is negative x minus 6. When I divide by 3, this would give me negative 1/3. I have positive 1/3. Okay? So you could just change each of those to make sure. You do want to have the 3 in the bottom. So that was like 1/3, but it wasn't positive 1/3. So these two would actually give me 3's instead of 1/3 because the 3 is with the x, not the y. So sometimes if you recognize some things, you may be able to see a pattern without figuring them all the way out. But I would find it easiest to know what it should be from the graph before I start. And you have some that you're writing equations from graphs. You have there are just the last couple questions, which I'm just assigning evens on the back side of the page. So you'll just have one question that you need to match with the graph. All right. Hope this was helpful. Thanks.